This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd Neiman.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd Neiman here again. Today, another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got two guests for you today. Excited to bring these guys in. I got Jason Postill and Tyler Lekas. Excited to share their story with you and teach you some of their tips and tricks along the way. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ferd. Thanks for having us.
Hey. Yeah, thanks for having us, Ferd.
Great. Well, we've talked a little bit offline a couple times and got a decent feel for your guys' background. But for our audience that doesn't, maybe tell us your background, how you guys got into MH, what you guys are working on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. This is Tyler Lekas. I got into the mobile home park space back in 2017. I ended up buying my first park down in Florida in 2018, which is a little 55 space property. Ended up meeting Jason through a pretty funny cold call. He ended up cold calling me about that 55 space park, and basically I told him to pound sand, and then we ended up kind of connecting after that, and anyways, I ended up hanging up the phone on him, and then and then what ended up happening after that is he called back. I was like, man, I kind of like this guy because I was in sales, I was in the financial world before I got into parks, and we ended up meeting for coffee, and there was some synergy there. And then Jason and I bought our first park together in Little Rock, Arkansas, 68 unit, 2-park portfolio in 2020. And since that time, we bought 752 units in the state of Arkansas. Kind of a rocket ship in the last couple of years. I'm sure you've had the same sort of thing, low rates and, good cap rates, trying to just buy everything you possibly can. So that's kind of the 50,000 foot view. Jason, did I miss anything there?
No, that was it. And as Jason Postill, my background is commercial real estate. I got in on the brokerage side. So just inside 10 years. Before that, after college, played minor league baseball for a while. So I didn't really have a typical background in real estate, but I got in as a apartment broker, and transitioned around around that time, 2016, 17, transitioned into the interest of mobile home parks. And I ended up going independent on a brokerage around that time. And that was when I was still cold calling, and Tyler's in my database. He owned that park, and it was around, holidays times. And he hung up on me exactly like he said, and called him back. And I said, I got to at least get out what I got to say. And long story short, we ended up meeting and went from there, and we've been growing quickly, and it's been good. So
interesting. I don't think I've heard quite that story where somebody is cold calling the other person, hangs up, and then they become business partners. So that's you guys got the interesting relationship. That's great. So Tell me, so you obviously a lot of focus in Arkansas. How are you guys finding parks in Arkansas? Or what kind of parks are you buying there? And did you specifically target Arkansas, or was that where you found the next one and then you just built around that nexus?
Jason, you want to take that?
Yeah, that was your wire. I'll hop in here a second to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, basically, I had a conversation, and he denies it to this day, which is pretty funny, with Frank Rolfe, kind of the godfather of mobile home parks. And I basically was like, hey, we're kind of getting priced out of Florida here. I said, where would you go in the Southeast that still probably has some opportunity? And he's like, well, I hate the Southeast. I'm like, okay, well, if you didn't hate the Southeast, where would you go? Frank's just super, super blunt. So, he said, if I was going to go anywhere and I was just starting out and I was going to go to the Southeast, he goes, I love Little Rock. There's no institutional ownership there. He goes, I would look for parks there. And I said, okay. And so one of my buddies had just started working at Marcus and Millichap. He ended up digging up that deal for us. And then what ended up happening was, Jason is money on the phones. He's a killer out there. So what ended up happening was we called all the parks that surrounded that 68 units. And then when we tag teamed it. So Jason hammered them on the phones, set up a meeting for me. And since it was all these Arkansas kind of old boys, I would go meet them, kind of shake their hand, show them that we're real. And then we ended up kind of, buying a 5-park portfolio. And then we bought, another 2 parks. And then we bought, again, we just kind of scaled out. And then when we got economies of scale in Little Rock, we moved to Northwest Arkansas, and then Northern Arkansas, and then Northeast Arkansas. So, anyways, that's how we kind of built our footprint. And the reason we liked Little Rock after we bought our first portfolio is, our average price per pad is around 20,000, and our lot rents are 350. So it's really hard for us to get hurt in this current environment, or in the price per pad that we bought these things for. And so we just found there was a huge discrepancy between the rent and the value, or the actual asset price we were buying these things for. And so that's just kind of why we continue to buy. And we haven't found really that many good deals. Like I think we've bought in 4 parks now for between $10,000 and $12,000 a pad. And it's like, we're kicking off 18% cash on cash returns. And our IRRs are in the 30s. We can't really get hurt there. So, that's the whole story kind of behind Arkansas. Jason, did I miss anything there?
No, and the deal size too. I mean, early on, just going back to Florida, we were just getting crushed. The cap rates kept compressing. These guys were coming in with these cash offers, hard day one on, and then maybe the due diligence period was long. We just couldn't compete at that time. And so what we ended up finding was, that first 68 unit, when we were piecing together these 18, 33 space, 40, those smaller, call it mid-size maybe, right? Our largest asset's 122 sites. But we're flying under the radar of those institution guys. They're not looking at anything, right? Under 2, 3, maybe arguably 500 units. And then the private guy, just maybe the weekend warrior to say, right? That 30 to 50, that's tough for him to take down. So those deals we were able to put together, and it's worked out well, right? Operationally, it's a challenge, right? To get those small deals doesn't make sense. We self-manage, but it's worked out. So that's where we've really capitalized on getting that scale in a market and grow. But yeah, that covered it.
Right. So let me follow up. What kind of occupancy are you guys pursuing? I mean, you buying these deals that stabilized, or are they 50% occupied? Anything in between? What's the preference?
Kind of everything in between, other than just stable. I mean, there's been our largest asset, 122. That's been essentially the cleanest, most occupied. That was 100% occupied, but it had 30% delinquency when we were coming into that. And every other project has been an extreme value add, 50 to, they have not been stable. But that deal ended up turning out great because we did work it out with the tenants to wipe their slate clean. We ended up 98% collections the first month. But yeah, other than that, I mean, that's been a monster too in itself now. But other than that, it's been a huge infill project and some tough turnarounds. Ty?
Oh, I've not done. I don't know any parks in Arkansas. How is infill there? How is working with the cities and as far as getting home sets and all that? Is it hard to find contractors like in a lot of locations, or is it pretty readily available?
It's on that. Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, contractors, as you probably know, for if they're if they're not beating their girlfriend or smoking meth, they're maybe working. So you know what I mean? Those guys, the guys in that industry, I just don't know what it is about those guys, but it seems like nobody wants to work and they don't show up for the job on time, and if they do, there's some problem somewhere. Anyways, so we probably face the same sort of issues that everybody else does. However, there is contract. We have found a good crew to, kind of set our homes. Another good crew to kind of deliver our homes. We've got another good crew that does skirting and steps, that whole 9 yards. Little Rock is not friendly at all towards mobile home parks. They don't really enforce their, the new homes that we have, coming in. So again, they kind of leave us alone, but they really don't like mobile home parks at all, and they're pretty predatory towards them, to be honest with you. But we've had some issues with the city, and we've resolved a couple of items, but it's definitely we've had our own sets of issues, and putting new homes actually on pads. What we found is a lot of the parks there are smaller. And so, and when I say smaller, I mean the turning to actually get off the road is like really small driveways to get off the road. And then there's smaller pads, right? I mean, these things were built in the 50s and 60s. And so we've actually found that one of our biggest obstacles is actually getting the home to be driven onto the park, so that we can actually drop it on a pad. So we actually have the highway guys drop these mobile homes on our a piece of vacant dirt that we have. And then we have the smaller toter crew with the trans lift to actually go in and maneuver the house around and actually get it into the park. Like a problem I never even thought that we'd be facing. Like I always just thought like the highway guys, they drive it in, they drop it, you block level and anchor it, and you're all good to go. But man, it's getting new homes. I mean, we've talked about this before, but getting new homes on pads. I mean, let me tell you, for your audience out there, any new operators or anybody that says that's going to invest in a deal as an LP in a heavy value add project, like, and if the sponsors isn't kind of, raising enough capital and kind of giving enough time frame to drop those houses and set those houses up and then lease those houses up, man, you better be asking some tough questions there, because it's a major undertaking. I'm sure.
That's a good point. I mean, that's one thing to look at. People forget about that a lot of times when they evaluate a park is how long are the lots? Can they fit modern size homes? You're gonna be stuck buying 1970s homes and or buying park models, which are, in my opinion, overly priced. So,
right.
And then can you squeeze them on the homes, on the lots? I had one park where we could barely get it up the drive to get into the park. So we had to basically go around another street. Luckily, there was 2 entrances of this park. We'd go around the other road and take it through a vacant lot. And it's like, well, we're going to fill this lot last and just take the home across the lots because we had a 76-foot home. It wouldn't, the pitch of the roadway, the entryway, we couldn't get up there and they were bottoming out. We had one get stuck, and then to get it pulled through, it starts to bend the frame and it can mess up the home. So yeah, it's definitely can be a challenge. Using those trans lifts are impressive, to see those guys move those things.
Yeah.
And I've had to get strategic with, because you can typically pull the home easier than you can push it. So on the toter truck, obviously they're pulling it, but then when you get a trans lift, it's like, oh crap, I want the front window with the light sconces and stuff. Obviously I want that facing the road, but in order to get on this lot, they're going to have to turn it around. And it's hard to do. They can't really do it as easily. And I've had truckers. There's one guy in particular that he brought 3 different homes to my park. Those were new homes that I'd ordered from True or Clayton. And the guy was just sweating bullets. Like he'd get out of his truck and he's just like, looks like he's, ready to die. And he hit a fence on one. He hit a moving car on one. And then on the last one, eventually I told him, I took a picture of the guy and I said, don't send this guy on my property again. It was raining. I had paved asphalt streets, and then I had soft gravel parking areas. And I told him, you got to get it off the street enough so that people can, until the installer can come, so people can pass through. But you got to put that back of the tires on the gravel because it's soaking wet grass. And he missed it, and he puts it down. He parks it, one wheel on the mud and one wheel on the asphalt, and the home just tipped over. And it tipped all the way over, not all the way on its complete side, but all the way over to like the water line coming out underneath the hot water heater, and it hit the ground, it snapped off, and then it just kind of laid there in the mud. And I'm like, how am I supposed to? You couldn't pull it out anymore. So it was a huge job getting that home squared away. But this guy was like, oh, I can fit it in anywhere. And then he realized, no, you can't. So it's definitely a challenge navigating. I had to pay, I just basically gave gift cards and candy and stuff to the guy, like the plumbing shop across the street, so that I could pull in their parking lot and then back into my park, because you couldn't make a 90-degree turn to pull in. So yeah, it definitely is an issue that not everybody, you don't really learn it until you learn it. And it's, what do they say? Good experience comes from, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. So like, I had original bad judgment, I got some experience, and now I'm pretty smart. But
and I think another thing, and again, not to beat this horse to death here, but I just think another thing people don't look at is, or a huge mistake we made is existing utility infrastructure at each one of the lots. You think, oh, I got to fill up, 9 or 10 lots. As long as I can get the homes on the lots, because we've had lots that are big enough for these houses. And then we don't look at, is there a existing utility pole there, right? Is there existing 200 amp box there? Is there existing power lines that are going underground or overhead? Or do we have to call the utility provider, get the overhead lines or underground lines installed? And again, that takes months, right? And then you got to hire an electrician. They want to charge $3-4 grand for a pole, a box, and then connecting the home all together. And then it's, hey, are the sewer lines collapsed because these lots haven't been used in 20 years? It's all this stuff, all this due diligence that you got to do on the front end to make sure that you're, the difference between a $15,000, just skirting steps, utility hookups, and HVAC, and a $30,000, hey, all brand new utilities that we have to run, plus all the stuff for the house is it's double your cost, or maybe 2.5 times your cost that you're putting in these houses. So any operator, like I said, I won't bring it up again. It's
good point, especially the gas and electric. Because if the utility provider says we must upgrade these for life safety reasons, you don't really have a leg to stand on. You can't say no. They're not going to turn the power on. I mean, you have to. They're king, and they say you got to do this. You're like, okay. So it's for me, it's kind of a difficult dance of, do I ask for permission during DD, or do I just do it and hope they're not paying attention? And they just hook it up, after I own it, and recognizing I may have to, later budget. I've had to go both ways. I'm like, I'm not going to ask, and I hook them up, and then nobody ever says anything. And then like 10 in, they're like, hey, do you have an electrician working on that? Oh, you got to upgrade that pedestal, and we need to go underground. And like, then then it's all of a sudden like, poof, there's 10 grand, right? So
yeah,
good points. So Jason, question for you on, how are you guys selling homes? Are you doing, you're selling them? Are you renting them? Some combination? And what's your business model as far as, do you desire park-owned homes or prefer not to have park-owned homes?
Yeah, so we sell all the homes, 10 owned home. That's across our portfolio, right? 85% right now are 10 owned homes. We've tested a few different models on selling those homes, right? So when we've had park-owned homes, our goal is to sell those off on a lease option, and we've had some nightmare stories that we could touch on, because I think these podcasts are great when people do share, like we just talked about, some nightmare situations other operators or maybe people trying to get in the space don't even think of or hear about, other than all the good, right? So
Right.
Yeah, these are great questions to cover it all, but the short answer is 10 owned home is our model, but we've had some park owned homes that we've Merry Christmas, happy birthday, here you go, and 10 owned home we try to sell off, or there was one community arch right next to the land development we were briefly talking about. That was probably a worst case scenario almost, other than going 100% vacant. 33 space park goes 50%, and that was because we were just, hey, you have this option to buy your home. People freaked out. They're like, I don't want to own. Some people just don't want ownership. We learned that was not the best way to approach it, right? So then we got a little softer with some of our approach of different options. Hey, you can, if you want, be a homeowner. If they're paying, let's say $750, essentially that payment will stay the same. You put a down payment. We've gone different directions with it and had much better success than just a hard, fast one direction, obviously. So that's worked out well. And yeah, some homes we're getting from the cash program, right? Brand new homes that we're selling on the lease option, but yeah, it's worked out well. And even the existing homes right now, we purchased a 49 site with some renovation homes that we're renovating, and it'll probably be a mix of the two. But yeah, we're gonna renovate those, sell them on a lease option, the purchase contract, and that's done really well.
Okay, so I want to touch on, you mentioned this. A lot of people think on these, some of these older homes, like, hey, just give them away, or tell people park-owned homes like, it's your house, congratulations, free house. But what you just articulated it when you did that just across the board, sounds like with 30 of them said free house, and then half the people said we don't want a free house, we liked having a landlord we could call to fix stuff, and then they just moved out, and then you have crap. Now I got half the tenants and I got half the problem houses back.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So I think I've heard other strategies I've seen people do with that is we haven't had to do it in bulk. We really have, because I've tried it a few times and had kind of similar experience. So we typically just like write out that resident when they move out. Then we'll make life safety repairs. We're not going to like upgrade the cabinets or the countertops, but typically those homes have some serious life safety repairs, holes in the floor, things like that. In those cases, what we'll do if we try to convert somebody, we'll say like, hey, your rent is $750, lot rent's $300. We'll give you the house and the new lot rent's $450. And they'll be like, okay, well, I've got $250 a month of savings. Now we tell them, now that you're saving $250 a month, when you own a house, you got to pay the taxes, you got to pay for insurance, and you need to set aside some of those savings for repairs and maintenance and upgrades. Realistically, not that many of them do it, and then you end up. So I've kind of got away from that because it's kind of backfire. Where it's like, great, they say, great, I got $450. I have $450 coming in. The first time their toilet doesn't work, they just quit using that toilet. Well, now they're using the other one, and then they clog it, and they need our help. And it's like, come on, guys. I mean, we've had people where we've asked them like, why aren't you using the other restroom? They go, oh, we haven't used that one in 6 months. It got clogged. We just taped the lid shut. Like that was their way of solving the problem. And they're like, well, it was our house. We couldn't call you anymore. So we went from a 2-bath house to a 1-bath house. I was just like, really? You could have asked our maintenance guy. We would have probably done it for $50, or you could have called a plumber. Like, yeah, but we just used the other bathroom. I'm like, you have 5 people living here, yeah? We just take turns. I'm like, I mean, so that defies logic in a lot of respects. Because they had the $150 to call a plumber because they were saving $250 a month, right?
Right.
But where'd that money go? I don't know. It's a mystery. I've given up on trying to understand where and how people spend their money or make their decisions. But okay, so
it's like,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry I was just gonna extrapolate on that. I was just gonna say, we want window coverings, good solid window coverings at our communities, blinds, curtains, something that's proper, not your bath towel, not tinfoil. And we always tell everybody, hey, look, if you have an issue with, your blinds break, your dog eats them, or your kid, breaks them off, you buy the blinds, we'll install them. We've sent that notice out to our residents, and nobody calls us. No. And then we give them a fine because they don't have proper window coverings up. And it's just like, and again, like you said, defies logic. I've stopped trying to figure it out because it'll drive you crazy. You're like, why aren't you using your toilet? You get a plunger or like a little snake. You borrow it from anyways, it's just I don't get it. And people just left their houses.
It's hard to figure people. I had a guy one time where his cat ruined the blinds. He was on a corner lot with a big bay window, and there's these big long blinds. So they weren't the cheapo blinds that I had to buy. And he was gone. Had the manager knock on the door. The guy's wife was home, and we said, "Hey, we want to fix your blinds." We even bought them because it was on a corner lot that was really really visible. She goes, "Okay, sounds great." Maintenance guy goes to Home Depot, picks up some blinds, comes back, installs them. They look great. The next day, there's no blinds you can see in their house. And we went by like, what happened? She goes, my husband said, you're not going to be fixing our house. I'll fix our house when I feel like it. So he took them down to prove he was the boss. I'm like, you could have said thank you. You could have just said nothing. But why would you do that? And it was the same guy. I had a painting program where I subsidized all the painting for this park. We painted like 30 houses. And I said, it's $500 a house. You pay for the paint. I'll pay for the labor, half and half. There was like $200 for the paint and $300 for the labor at that time. And I had to get the permission because it was their house. Most people jumped at it. This guy wouldn't do it. I had 16 color combos, so you couldn't paint it orange or anything like that. And this guy said no. And I basically said, look, under the lease, you got peeling paint and stuff. You got to fix it up. So I could fine you for peeling paint, or you could let me paint your house. And this is a once in a lifetime gift. And the guy said, let me think about it. And that weekend he painted it himself, bright blue. And I was like, and it stands out. And I'm like, it looks okay. But I'm like, you showed me, save me $250. He painted his own house.
Yeah, God. Yeah. There's these, the rest. Yeah. Anyways, we could go down the rabbit hole there. I'm sure pretty far. There's a lot of guys that just don't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's, you find and guys will on purpose, they'll let you fine them. Like we've been fining this guy $150 a month on $350 lot rent. And because he's got like refrigerators and everything else in his front yard. And we've offered him now like a dozen times. We said, hey, all we're going to do is charge you $750 and we're going to go clean up all, and it's like, we're talking like a 30-yard, maybe more of stuff around his house. And again, we've had some occupancy issues at this one property, so we're letting him slide because we don't want to refill his lot because his house is in shambles, etc. But it's like he's been getting charged. I mean, we've probably charged him, I don't even know, close to $3,000 in fees now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he just continues to eat it, and you're like, all right, dude, yeah, good luck. You know, it defies logic. But I was going to ask you, I know this is your podcast, but I was going to ask you, so you have found that giving houses away doesn't really work, especially when they're like, have you found that same thing when houses are vacant and you are just trying to give them away to the general public as well?
We've tried giving, it depends on the park. If we try to give away a house, we prefer to just, rather than market it and give it to anybody, we just ask one of the maintenance guys, like, hey, do you want a free house? And then they'll find a cousin or a friend and be like, all right, free house. And somebody like, look, you can't live in it until you fix it up, and you got to fix it up. And then they often, what do they spend their money on? The inside. I get it. I'd spend my money on the inside too. So that doesn't work for us. We want the outside too. So what we started doing was we say, here's a free house. We paint it. We fix the skirting. We fix the deck. We put in a gravel driveway, and we say, free house, you owe us $500 for the exterior upgrade, and then we charge them $500 for the house that looks good on the outside. And we have better success with that. If you give away, some states you can't even give away houses. Most states you can give away a house that's not livable, as long as you don't sell a house not livable, but that can get dicey. And we had it happen one time in a state where you can, and we gave away a house and it was not livable. And everybody knew it was not livable. We didn't represent it was livable. Again, it didn't even have walls. It was like 4 walls, no cabinets, no kitchen counters, no bedrooms, no bathrooms. It was just a blank slate that somebody else demoed the interior and then didn't do anything. I'm like, clearly it wasn't a house. And the guys like started working on it. We saw materials come in and all this stuff. And then come to find out it's 10 degrees outside. And the manager's like, hey, I'm worried these guys are going to freeze to death. And we're like, is their furnace broken? He goes, they never put a furnace in. We're like, what? He goes, no, it was a free place to be out of the rain, and they stored their stuff. They sleep on a mattress on the floor. Where do they go to the bathroom? He goes, McDonald's or work. So where do they shower? He's like, they just don't really shower. And I was like, what? So I'm like, they weren't supposed to be living there. Like, well, they moved in. So we're like, good grief. So then we're like, we got to put them in a hotel. We don't want to freeze to death. So we're like, don't go tell all your friends. We don't want to have a bunch of people put in hotels. We just, but so that was kind of a nightmare of giving away a free home. So we've gotten really pessimistic about it. So it's kind of depends on the park, depends on the deal, but like half the time it's better just to demo it and move on. Now, some parks it's hard to infill and things like that. I don't really want to. If it's a good park where I have good demand, I'll just demo it and bring in a different one. So we probably demoed, I don't know, a dozen houses last year and just replaced them. But we probably gave away, I don't know, half that many. Not that many. One park I gave away 25, and it worked like magic. And then like a year and a half later, I got like 10 of them back. So it still was worth it because of all the net occupancy. But getting them back is a huge pain because you'd think, in theory, one of the first parts I did this on, gave away the same house 5 times. Give it away, and the first guy's like, I'm gonna fix it, I'm handy, and then he'd clean it out, and then he'd disappear, and the next guy'd come in and he'd fix the wall and put down subfloor. All right. And the next people like, you can sweat equity, but you can't sweat equity a fridge. You can't sweat equity an air conditioner. They can go get cabinets for cheap somewhere and makeshift a bedroom and things like that. So this house we kept getting back, and in theory, and this time it actually worked. That one actually kind of worked, where it kept getting a little better because people were actually working on it and not living in it. But most time what we found is you give it away is they're not getting better. The people live on scraps. Like we give them a house and there's no flooring. It's just subfloor. And then you go in there 6 months later and it's still subfloor. Like, you guys didn't buy vinyl, or you didn't buy like used carpet or buy a rug. Nope. And there's just dog pee everywhere, poop everywhere. Like, yeah, whatever. We just let the dog go on the floor. Don't even pick it up. You know, I went in a house with like 200 piles of dog poop. Like, why? You know, you can't make sense of it. So in general, the handyman special free home, I think it's about as much trouble to demo it versus give it away. So I have parks where I'll do both, but I'm more and more I'm just like demo it and move on. And I had one park, we sold this park actually now, but we had a guy, he did our landscaping, mowing, and he had a construction company, and he had 4 houses in the park, and he had a whole crew of Hispanic guys that they would go home for the winter to Mexico, and they'd come back during the rest of the year and work construction and landscape. And he'd put these guys up in these houses. Well, then we had another house that become vacant. We'd say, "You want it?" He'd say, "Okay." And he'd renovate, and he'd bring 2 or 3 more guys, and he'd just give them free housing as part of their work. And we had a shop that we wanted to renovate into a site built house. We thought it was like 20 grand. It was a masonry building. We go through the city, and the city wants us to put in modern size windows, you know, modern size doors, and it was going to cost like 80 grand to fix this thing to code if we wanted to buy a house. So we just went to this guy, Sammy, and said, "How'd you like to rent this as a shop? Put all your tools," and he had mowers and trucks and stuff. He goes, "Just rent this as a shop. You can't live in it." It had a bathroom in it. And he goes, "Okay." So lot rent was 400. We just rented him the house for 400, and he just paid it, and he fixed it up and made it a shop, and it got his vehicles off the street, and, you know, his lawnmower trailers and stuff, and it's good for him, good for us. So that was like the best handyman special deal, because it had lots of ancillary impacts, and we made him paint it and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's
the only. Oh, sorry for me to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say some success that we've been having is we came up with a repair document, and basically our leasing agent now says, "Hey, look, just letting you know, this is a handyman special. So you have to send over a bank statement with $5,000 at least in your bank account, and you have to agree to this repair agreement, and this has to be started in 90 days and completed in 180 days." And we have found that we have a lot less people applying for these handyman specials.
Sure.
But when we get somebody to apply and agree, they usually get the work done now. I'm not saying 100% of the time. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're batting 1,000 over here, but that's been something that's worked for us. But it took a lot of times getting kicked in the teeth, like you said. A guy comes in, like we had somebody who said they were going to agree to fix up a house early on, and it was like a couple of months, and I asked my manager, I said, "What's going on with that house?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. They haven't been working on it in a couple months." So I went over there, and they stripped all the drywall out of there, all the electrical, all the cabinets, all the drywall in between all the houses. So this whole house was a bunch of basically studs and subfloor, and like, you know, I mean, when I say studs, I mean all the 2x4 framing, and then just subfloor. And I was like, "Got it. Okay, so they stole everything out of here. Got it. Okay." Anyway, so I love when brokers go in and advertise handyman specials, and like, "Oh, it's easy. All you got to do is give these houses away." You're like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's probably that easy." That's why the old owner hasn't done it yet, because it's that easy, you know? So that's just, yeah. Anyway, it's just another myth in the business that hopefully your listeners will, take some piece of wisdom away from, you know?
Yeah, no, agreed. Good points. Jason, you got anything to add on that topic, or you want any other tips for sales or finding deals, or maybe any other strategies you want to cover?
Yeah, no, the repair addendum, that was big, and yeah, that was a good point. I mean, just gifting the homes has not worked, because we'll still even have people put down a good payment, like $5,000. We had one woman put down 5,000, then she abandoned the home after like we couldn't even figure it out. I was like, what's going on? But yeah, the home sales, once you find that sweet spot of where people will lease it from, and again, we're in Southwest Little Rock, so it's a different market maybe than Fayetteville or other markets, but But no, the infill's challenging, but we found success, and a little money down, get them some skin in the game. And then the Lonnie dealers, we've had some success with that. We don't want to get too out of hand, but if anybody's not familiar, on your listeners on that, we found some guys that will repair the homes, right? And they'll do that and save us that cost, and then they'll rent them out, right? They'll make a little spread. Like I said, we don't let that get too out of hand, but that's definitely helped a few of our properties, and they've had a few in each property. I don't think, Tyler, they're not getting over, I don't know, 20% of the whole park, controlling that, but that's worked out fairly well too. Just giving it to someone that's reputable, we know does a good job renovating, and then we still always ask to screen the tenant. Sometimes that, we can't control that always, right? Because they'll be moving in the middle of the night or moving in a cousin, but that's hard to police. But we at least put it in writing somewhere to try to monitor that. But that's worked well. Other than that, I mean, that's been our just marketing, just Facebook, Show Mojo, just those platforms that are syndicating it out. It's really just our main leads. It's worked well.
Jason, sorry for
let me jump into the Lonnie dealers just for our audience too. A couple concerns on that. You just want to make sure that your Lonnie dealers don't get too high a percentage of the homes, because it could mess up your future financing, because they kind of have you over a barrel if they want to move them out. But then also, I recommend, I even give them, if I let people sublease, I'll give them my template home lease, and I'll say, look, you must use this form lease, and it says that the land lessor is an intended third-party beneficiary, so I can enforce rules against both you, the Lonnie dealer, and your resident, and all residents need to go through our background check. And I care less about their financial situation, because I'm counting on Lonnie to pay me rent, but I care more about their criminal background. So Lonnie's on the hook either way, and I've had situations where the subtenants have gotten sideways with their landlord, but they wanted to stay. So they've come to me and said, at one time in particular, there was a grandpa that was paying for his 20-year-old niece and her granddaughter and her friend, and they were supposed to pay like $750 a month to Lonnie, and then I was supposed to get $400. He just came to me and he said, I'll pay for the $400 and I'll pay for their water, but I'm not paying their home rent. And then I later found out Lonnie's like, yeah, they never pay me. I haven't gotten around to evicting them, and I'm sorry. I'm like, they're paying me directly. He didn't know they were paying me. I figured he knew. He thought I was just being gracious to him, not coming after him for being 8 months behind. I'm like, your tenants may be 8 months behind with you, but they're paying me every month. Wow. And he's just like, oh, so it was a weird relationship. But they did that for a long time. I don't even know what ever happened to the guy. But anyway. Well, guys, other tips or tricks or ideas for our audience before we go?
Yeah, Jason, you want to talk about how we're, kind of our acquisitions and kind of how we're drumming up deals these days, and kind of what we've kind of our timeline of how long we've been talking to sellers and that kind of road, because that's Jason's an expert on the acquisition side as well. I don't think you mentioned that at the beginning of the call. So
yeah, I think that's a good tip. Just everybody's trying to find deals, right? I mean, it's like the money and the deals, right? Those are two. So yeah, we could definitely speak on that. It's a good. Again, just to go back to the small to mid size in a Arkansas market, right? It wasn't. There's competitive markets all over the place. But yeah, it's really, we leverage brokers, we do, but probably about 85% plus is just direct owner, right? And there's lots of ways to go about that. I personally, we haven't found much better than just a direct cold call to the seller, right? And we've worked on an acquisition team, and just because Tyler and I can't wear a million hats for forever, right? So we're delegating slowly but surely. But yeah, the direct contact, especially when you first get that one property, right? You get over that one deal, it's much easier to get those owners, call it warm, but when you're an owner that you own down the road and you're calling and saying, hey, I own a property next door, it's a little warmer than just a broker, or not owning in that market, just calling them because they're getting called all day by brokers, other owners, direct competition. So but having the ability to, like Tyler was saying earlier, with I'll go call him, he'll meet them. That goes a long way, in some of these other markets, because maybe up in New York or Florida, down here, they're used to so many guys calling out a market. You're maybe not getting that eye-to-eye handshake meeting right away. But that has gone a long way, and it's helped with, and we couple it with direct mailing campaigns. We've done some ringless voicemails, right? We've all gotten those, which kind of sound, and there's so many ways, right? What'd you say? It works?
Those are the worst.
Oh, the worst. Oh, the worst.
I get them I get them almost every day, and I'm like, does anyone sell to this person? It's the same guy, the Asian accent. I'm like, you're not really the one buying this. You are clearly like some, virtual assistant making these calls. Please stop calling me.
Exactly. And training a team to sound, it's just, I know they're out there and they do it, and you guys do it, and we've drummed up deals. We've had virtual assistants, we still do, but there's just having the true owner or principal or someone that's in just speaks a whole different other language, right, to that owner. So yeah, all the other fancy stuff. I mean, now there's AI guys calling in. I've tested that, and that's like, we don't want to tarnish our name yet with just random robots. It's like, oh, MHCI Group, no, we want to talk to them and know we're it, talking. So that's really, I wish there was a magic bullet, but other than that, just when getting into a property and doing the renovations, right, within the first 60 days, we're putting in new paving. We're doing a lot of upgrades aesthetically, other than just bumping rent and then nothing to really show for it until later down the road or at some point. So that's really drummed up too some of the city officials that maybe didn't love the idea, like, oh, well, we'd rather this get bulldozed and then have an A-class development here to just for some beautification of the city, right? And yet they're trying to solve the affordable housing crisis, which that doesn't do it. 2,100 for a one bedroom. So we have actually had a couple of deals where Tyler will be on site and the city officials say, hey, you know what, you guys are doing a really good job here. You need to talk to this slumlord that we've been trying to get out of here for years. And then it'll turn into a little lead where it's, oh, okay, hey, this worked out. And then, but yeah, it's always gotten back to just picking up the phones and calling them. And then they'll eventually call back. Like right now, we just closed on a deal that was 3 years of following up. And that's tough to do after a while. You're just like, oh, I'm calling this guy again. It's like you're almost harassing them until they tell you no, then we'll just say, all right, 6 months or a year. And then they've come back to us now. A lot's changed. So maybe they got a little greedy, right? And now they're saying, okay, that was a pretty good offer they brought. And then we're getting some now inbound from up front. But yeah, I would just say, listener, for your listeners out there, they're either trying to get in deals or grow their portfolio. I mean, the leverage brokers, of course, but I've been a broker, I am a broker, but we all do know too, the broker's job is to get the highest and best price for the seller oftentimes. And you're bidding against other brokers for those assignments. So it does climb. But we'll leverage brokers and they, if you know them well or make that relationship, they'll call you before they even take it to market. Right. And that's the best case scenario. Right. But yeah, I think that's really again, wish there was a magic bullet. Nobody wants to hear, oh, cold call. And nobody really loves doing that, but it's really where we found it, and some direct mailers and just. So
are you doing the cold calls, or is your virtual, I want to hear your strategy as far as virtual assistant versus next level versus one of you talking to, is it you guys, or is it a mix? Are you calling some and the VAs, or the VAs just saying, hey, will you talk to Jason?
Yeah, no, good question. So yeah, I'd love to say we got it set up now. They're handing it off warm, and we actually terminated that. We're restructuring that acquisition side. So where it was is there was some deals that they were just cold calling the owner with the basic script. I would practice with them and then when they got a principal on the phone, or Tyler, myself, right, that was basically all we're supposed to do, is just get a warm intro to then have Tyler either meet them in person. I'll call them back for a more detailed conversation. That worked out okay. I mean, still to this day though, we don't have that set up. So there's still a lot of calls. Tyler he's met some of these sellers now. I don't know, Tyler probably spent 50 hours with some of them. It's been wild, but yeah, I mean, the process has been, today, since we don't have the acquisition team going full steam yet, yeah, it's really, just a cold call. If never spoke to them, which now at this point, we've almost talked to every owner in Arkansas. right? So it's more of just like a follow-up. Hey, we spoke a while ago, just checking in. Here's what's happening, bring a little value. And then it'll either be like, hey, Tyler's in the area, like tomorrow. We got a deal looking at. And yeah, it's really still Tyler and I just two-man banding this thing. And we're getting that acquisition side because now we have some more automations and follow-ups and back-end emails and texts. But it's crazy to see that not everybody's in with the technology still in some of these places. They're so
good stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're wrapping up here. Any other last minute comments, or if not, where can people find you guys?
Yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn at MHCI Group. You can just type in our company name. I'm also on LinkedIn. Tyler at just Tyler Lekas. And I don't have an Instagram. I'm old. I have a Facebook. But you'd probably find some political stuff about whatever, political or guns or whatever on there. So it's probably not about mobile home parks, which your listeners would probably be more interested in. We're trying to beef up our social media here a little bit, but again, we're old farts, so we're it's not the easiest thing. And Jason and I like to fly under the radar as well. But anyways, Jason, where can people find you?
No, I mean, yeah, I said, MHCI Group. That's us. I mean, the email is always pretty easy to get a hold of. Jason at MHCIGroup.com, and same with Tyler. So, but yeah, Ferd, we really appreciate you having us on here, and hope we brought some value, and appreciate you sharing as always. It's awesome to hear not always the great, right? What's really happening on the operations side, right? So
always challenges.
It's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Ferd.
Yep.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.